I know those steps are a little treacherous. It's very dark over there. Oh, and you got a boot. All right.
Dog parks are dangerous, by the way. When I first became a manager many years ago, managers were expected to be pretty tough on their employees, to make demands, not requests, to brook no dissent, and there was very little consideration given to issues about employee morale. And while many managers didn't fit that model, we all knew that it was the standard that we were being judged by. But I had a very supportive boss, and he heard about a promotional opportunity within our company that he encouraged me to go for. The company we worked for provided telecommunications services to large business customers. And if I was to get this job, I'd be assigned to one customer, a large tech-based firm in Bloomington, Minnesota. And I'd be expected to office on the customer premise. I'd be an advocate for them for any issues related to our company. And I'd be a point of escalation for any network failure. And I thought that job sounded way too intimidating. But my manager was sure I could do it. In trying to be helpful, he set up an informational interview with the man who was currently doing the job, a guy named Larry. And at that interview, I sat in front of Larry's desk while he stared at my resume for what seemed like the longest time. And then he started to shake his head back and forth, and finally, glaring up at me over his reading glasses, he said, "I can't believe that anyone would think that you are qualified to do this job." Now, as humiliating as those words were, I suspected he was right, and as soon as I could, I told my manager I was withdrawing from consideration, but he was adamant that Larry was flat out wrong. And I ended up getting that job, but the first few weeks were brutal. I felt lost and uncertain, and believe me, Larry's words were rattling around in my head. But one day I got a call from a peer of mine, someone who had the same type of job but was assigned to an even more difficult and demanding customer, and he asked me if I'd like a mentor. And when he advised me to make a list of every work group within my company that had any part to play in the telecom service we provided to my customer, and then to call each manager one at a time and ask him or her if they'd be willing to meet me over a cup of coffee. And when I did that, within the first few minutes of the conversations that followed, many of the managers would say to me, "I hope you will not be like Larry." And they would tell stories of how he treated their employees in a demeaning way, how he would never ask their opinion, just make demands. And in the case of an outage in the network, he would drive to the point of failure and harass and yell at the technicians desperately trying to restore service. And I assured each manager in turn I would never do any of those things. And every one of those conversations was the beginning of a good working relationship. And for the first time, I could sort of envision what success on that job would look like. And I had the job for many years, and I consistently received higher customer ratings than Larry ever did. And when I look back at that time, I decided that unhealthy idea of how managers should treat people, my company believed it at that time. That was the soil I was planted in. But my manager believing in me was like a gentle all-night rain on that parched soil. And my peer's gift of his time and expertise was like the sunlight that every plant needs. And as for Larry, his contribution to my growth was like a toxic dose of fertilizer, nothing but shit that burns. But he didn't hurt me, not in the long run, because with some good help, I had found a way to bloom. Thank you.
All right, that's Annie, everyone.